In the heart of apartheid South Africa, two men risk everything to challenge a brutal system and attempt one of the most daring prison escapes in history. The film begins in South Africa during the 1970s, when the country was deeply divided by apartheid policies. The white rulers were committing inhumane atrocities against black people solely because of their race. They were brutally beaten and treated like animals. Black people had neither rights nor protection. To fight for what was theirs, they took to the streets in protest. But instead of listening to their voices, the government crushed them even harder with force. Then we see a man moving quickly through a crowded street, carrying two bags in his hands. He walks with determination and drops one bag into a public trash bin. This man is Tim Jenkin. A short distance away, his friend Stephen Lee is watching carefully, covering for Tim. It's clear that the two of them are about to take a major step. After placing the bag, Tim signals to Lee. As soon as he gets the signal, Lee picks up the second bag and leaves it in another busy area. Inside these bags are pamphlets protesting against the government's policies, along with a bomb. But this bomb isn't meant to kill anyone. It's designed to explode in a way that scatters the pamphlets into the air, spreading them everywhere. Tim and Lee had already planted several of these leaflet bombs in different places. At the right moment, Tim activates the bomb and calmly walks away. A few seconds later, a loud blast startles everyone. But the purpose isn't to hurt anyone. The explosion scatters hundreds of pamphlets all over the place. These pamphlets directly condemned the brutal system of apartheid and protested against the government's racist policies. The message was clear. The fight for freedom and equality for all races must continue, no matter the cost. Tim and Lee were members of the African National Congress, and their mission was part of a larger movement, carried out in solidarity with Black and Asian activists fighting against racial injustice in South Africa. After completing their mission, Tim and Lee start to leave, but before they can get away, the police surround them and arrest both of them on the spot. Enjoying the movie so far? Don't forget to subscribe for more. We bring you detailed movie explanations you won't want to miss. Before being taken to court, a close friend visits Tim at the police station. She secretly slips him some money that might help him later. Before leaving, she encourages Tim to stay strong and face whatever challenges lie ahead with courage. Tim hides the money inside a cigar tube and then conceals the tube within his body so that no one can discover it. After that, Tim and Lee are presented in court for speaking out against their country, their government, and even their own community, for condemning apartheid policies, and for possessing 17 custom-made devices and 26 bombs. The court sentences Lee to 8 years and Tim to 12 years in prison. They are sent to South Africa's most notorious facility, Pretoria Prison, for political offenders. Hearing his sentence, Lee becomes deeply distressed. Before being taken away, he seizes a chance to jump out of a window and tries to escape, but he's quickly caught and brutally beaten by the police. After that, both of them are put into a van and taken to Pretoria Prison. When Tim and Lee arrive, the warden comes out to receive them. He is furious with them, believing that they have betrayed their own country and their own people. The warden then hands them over to a strict guard. As soon as they are brought inside, they're searched thoroughly. The guard then begins escorting them to their cell, explaining each rule one by one, making it clear that no matter what happens, they must never break the rules. Tim carefully observes everything around him. He studies each door closely and pays attention to the rest of the staff stationed there. The guard then shows Tim and Lee their cell. It has a grill gate followed by a metal door. He locks them inside and warns them to keep everything clean and maintain discipline before leaving. The next morning, their first day in prison begins. Everyone goes for breakfast, and there Tim meets a man named Dennis. Dennis tells him that he too was an anti-apartheid activist and has been sentenced to life in prison. He's going to spend the rest of his life inside these walls. Dennis also explains that prisoners wearing blue shirts are dangerous murderers, jailed for homicide, and Tim should stay away from them. Those in gray shirts, however, are political prisoners. Soon after, Lee joins them. Dennis asks how long their sentences are, and Lee replies that he got 8 years while Tim got 12. Tim immediately says that he's not planning to stay here that long. At that moment, we see a French prisoner named Leonard watching Tim and Lee very closely. Just then, a guard viciously beats a black prisoner simply because he dropped his soup. That moment makes it clear to everyone just how brutal and dangerous that guard really is. After that, all the prisoners are brought out into the exercise yard. Tim and Lee are there too, along with Dennis. Dennis begins explaining the entire structure of the prison to them. How many guards and staff are posted at each gate, how many searchlights are in place, what the prison layout looks like, and the directions and routes that lead outside. He tells them that at the main exit gate, there is always a sniper stationed, who will shoot any escaping prisoner without hesitation. Dennis explains that most new inmates think about escaping during their first days here, but no one ever succeeds, and eventually they all give up on the idea. He also mentions that some prisoners smuggle money inside their bodies, and many of them end up getting infections because of it. He warns Tim and Lee that if they've brought money in that way, they should take it out immediately and hide it somewhere safe. After saying this, Dennis walks away. Just then, Leonard approaches Tim and Lee. Leonard tells them to never listen to Dennis because he always discourages anyone who dares to think about escaping. He insists that it is possible to escape from here, and he can help them. Leonard says that he'll provide them with whatever information or support they need, but in return, they must include him in their plan. He also wants to escape this prison with them. Meanwhile, as they're having this conversation, the prison warden spots them from a distance and begins to grow suspicious. After the exercise yard, all the prisoners head back to their cells. As soon as Tim returns, the first thing he does is remove the cigar tube he had hidden inside his body, the one containing the money. The next day, while avoiding the guard's attention, Tim quietly hands the money over to Dennis so he can hide it somewhere safe. Dennis carefully conceals the money inside his toothpaste tube. Days pass, and before long, 23 days have gone by. One night, Tim begins studying the lock on his cell door with great focus. Over the next several days, he keeps watching the keyhole, and every time a staff member or guard unlocks it, Tim listens closely to the sound of the mechanism, trying to understand exactly how it works. Using what he has learned so far, Tim decides to make a key for the cell door. After nightfall, once the guards and staff have left, he takes a piece of paper and carefully traces the shape of the keyhole so he can get the right outline to work with. Then he rolls the paper into a thin strip and inserts it inside the keyhole, letting it press against every hidden lever of the lock. When he pulls it out, the faint creases left behind reveal the exact shape and path of the real key's bit. From this, Tim decides he will carve a key out of wood. The next day, Tim shares his idea with Leonard. He tells him that he traced the shape of the cell door's keyhole onto paper and now plans to make a wooden key. Leonard immediately tells him it won't work, since a wooden key would break easily. That's why real keys are always made of metal. At that point, Lee cuts in and asks Leonard, "Do you want to get out of here or not?" Leonard then turns back to Tim and asks where they'll even get the wood to make the key. Tim replies that they'll steal it from the prison's woodwork shop. Just then, the guard shows up, so they quickly stop their conversation. The following day, during mealtime, Tim wants to get a look at the real key so he can better understand its design. To help him, Leonard deliberately drops his food tray and pretends like he's about to start a fight. When the guard rushes over to deal with it, Tim takes advantage of the distraction and gets a close look at the key. Back in the cell, Tim uses a ruler to sketch the key on paper. From then on, whenever he gets the chance, he finds excuses to get near the guards and carefully study the key again, focusing especially on the cuts along the edge. It's crucial for him to understand every detail of the design so he can replicate it. Finally, Tim manages to draw a perfect sketch of the key, giving him a clear idea of exactly how to craft his own replica. It's Tim's 74th day in prison. He's in the workshop where the inmates are working. Seizing an opportunity, Tim quietly slips a few pieces of wood into his water bottle to hide them. Just then, a guard walks in and notices Tim, becoming slightly suspicious. The guard orders everyone to stop working and line up to leave. But before they go, he searches each prisoner one by one. When it's Tim's turn, the guard even checks his water bottle. But he doesn't find anything suspicious, so Tim passes without getting caught. Back in his cell, Tim takes out the hidden wood pieces from the bottle and begins working on his key. After a lot of effort and precise shaping, he finally manages to craft one. Now it's time to test it. Tim carefully slides the wooden key into the lock of his cell door. Slowly he turns it, and at last, his hard work pays off. The lock clicks open. Tim is overjoyed with this first success, but the real challenge is still ahead, getting past the strong metal gate outside. The next day, Tim, Lee, and Leonard sit together to discuss it. They realize that the keyhole for the metal gate is on the outside, which makes it nearly impossible to open from inside the cell. But Leonard tells Tim, "First you make the key. After that, we'll definitely find a way to use it." Tim takes Leonard's advice and, with a lot of effort, manages to craft a key for the metal gate as well. By this time, Tim and Lee have already completed 100 days in the prison. One day, while all the prisoners are outside their cells cleaning, Tim gets the perfect chance to test his new key. Leonard keeps watch near the entrance, while Tim carefully inserts the key into the lock and begins to turn it. Slowly it turns, and finally, the lock clicks open. The three of them are overjoyed, but their happiness doesn't last long. As Tim tries to pull the key back out, the lock suddenly jams. Unfortunately, when he applies more force, the key snaps, leaving a piece stuck inside the keyhole. Panic sets in immediately. Just then, Leonard rushes over nervously and whispers, "Someone's coming." Tim frantically tries to remove the broken piece. A prison staff member arrives at that exact moment. To avoid suspicion, all the prisoners quickly get back to cleaning, pretending to be busy. Once the staff leaves, Tim tries again. Eventually, he manages to get the broken piece out, but no matter how hard he tries, the latch won't slide back into place properly. A little later, the guard comes to lock the cell door. Tim's heart is racing as the guard notices the latch and pauses for a moment, clearly suspicious. But after a brief hesitation, he ignores it, shuts the door, and walks away. Tim exhales deeply, flooded with relief. The next day, all the prisoners' families are allowed to visit. Leonard's son comes to see him. Since Leonard is only permitted to meet his son once a year, and only for 30 minutes, it's a precious moment. But not even 10 minutes pass before the guard orders Leonard's son to leave. Leonard protests, saying the full 30 minutes aren't over yet, but the guard doesn't care. Watching this unfold fills Leonard with rage. The next day, Tim and Lee ask Leonard about his son, but Leonard doesn't say a word. From his silence, they realize just how cruelly the guard treated him. Later, back in their cell, the three of them talk things over. They point out that while Tim has managed to make the key, the problem is that the metal door's keyhole is on the outside. They still have no idea how to actually turn the key from inside. At that moment, Lee notices a mopping stick. Tim measures the distance between the stick and the small window in their cell. The following day in the workshop, Tim can't stop thinking about the problem. He keeps asking himself, even if they manage to get the key into the keyhole, how will they actually rotate it? Then he spots a hand wheel lying nearby, and suddenly an idea strikes him. That night in the cell, Tim drills a hole into the mop handle and attaches a piece of wood to it, creating a tool that works like a hand wheel. He fixes the key to the end of the stick, pushes it out through the window, and manages to insert it into the metal door's keyhole. Because of the hand wheel design, this time he's able to turn it successfully. But as soon as he tries to pull the key back in, it slips and falls to the ground outside. Tim panics, terrified that they've lost it for good. Thinking quickly, he chews some gum and sticks it onto the end of the pole. Carefully, he lowers it, presses the gum onto the key, and manages to pull it back inside. At that moment, Tim realizes just how dangerously close he came to ruining everything, and how narrowly he escaped a huge mistake. The next day, when Tim comes for his meal, his behavior seems strange. Leonard and Lee can't figure out why he looks so restless. After a while, Tim finally tells them that he's managed to unlock both doors. Hearing this, the three of them are overjoyed, and their hope becomes stronger than ever. The following day, during garden duty, Tim digs a small hole in the ground and hides the keys he made so the guards will never find them. But Dennis notices him. Dennis warns Tim that what he's doing is extremely dangerous and that he should forget about escaping. He tells him, "Even if you somehow make it out, you won't survive the sniper at the entrance. That guy is a complete psychopath. He won't try to capture you. He'll shoot you straight in the head." Dennis goes on to say, "You're a young activist. Society needs people like you right now. Escaping prison isn't the solution. It's like cutting off your own future." Tim listens and partially agrees, but he firmly insists that he has to escape, and for that, he needs Dennis's help. That night, Tim once again unlocks his cell door and steps out a little to survey the area. He wants to understand the nighttime environment, how the guards patrol, and what the situation outside is really like. The next day, an argument breaks out between Tim and the other prisoners. Tim tries to convince everyone to join his plan and escape with him. One prisoner responds, "Just unlocking 2 or 3 doors won't change anything. There are plenty more doors after that." Tim confidently replies, "If I can unlock these 3, I can unlock the rest too." Another inmate mocks him, saying, "Even if you manage to unlock every single door, how will you walk down the street in broad daylight dressed in prison clothes?" Tim calmly answers, "I'm working on that." Dennis, who's been listening closely, cuts in with a cold tone, "Your plan is complete nonsense." By now, 206 days had passed in prison. Tim realized that to move forward with his plan, he desperately needed a map of the prison. For that, he turned to a black laborer who worked as a cleaner inside. In exchange for the map, the man asked Tim for cigarettes and a bar of soap, and Tim agreed. Around this time, new inmates were brought in. The guards stripped off their clothes and gave them prison uniforms. Lee watched everything carefully. When the guards stored the newcomers' clothes in the storeroom, Lee waited for the right moment and quietly stole them. He then wore those clothes under his prison uniform, cleverly smuggling them out without raising suspicion. The next day, the black prisoner signals to Tim that the job is done. But just then, a guard notices them. The man had hidden a newspaper in the trash bin for Tim, and inside that paper was the prison map. As promised, Tim taped the cigarettes and soap underneath the bin for him in return. By now, 296 days had passed. A guard brings Tim the new reading glasses he had ordered. As he leaves, the guard casually mentions that Tim's new black friend, the one he had befriended, was executed 3 days ago. Hearing this, Tim feels deep sorrow, but he tells himself he cannot give up. That night, Tim arranges his blanket on the bed in such a way that it looks like he's asleep. Then he quietly slips out of his cell with Leonard by his side. Tim wants to test all the keys he's made and also gather information to finalize his escape strategy. He unlocks door after door, moving forward carefully. But soon, he realizes a prison staff member is on duty outside, keeping watch. Still, Tim isn't done testing his keys, so he carefully unlocks another lock. Suddenly, perhaps because of some noise, the staff member starts coming out of his room. Seeing this, Tim and Leonard quickly retreat and hide inside a storeroom. The prison staff walks toward the cells to carry out an inspection. Taking advantage of the moment, Tim and Leonard sneak out of the storeroom because Tim still needs to test the rest of the keys. One by one, he successfully unlocks all the locks. Meanwhile, the staff checks the cells and finds everything in order. Finally, Tim reaches the very last prison gate. But no matter how hard he tries, that lock refuses to open. He struggles with it, determined, but before he can make any real progress, the staff starts returning, and Tim has no choice but to flee. The next morning, even after the alarm rings, Tim keeps sleeping. During the routine check, the warden himself comes by. He kicks Tim awake and asks, "Why are you still asleep after the alarm? That means you stay up at night, and that's why you can't wake up in the morning, right?" Tim quickly apologizes and says it won't happen again. But the warden doesn't like this at all, neither Tim's oversleeping nor his apology. Furious, he scolds Tim and threatens, "If this happens again, I'll skin you alive." After this, all the prisoners are brought out of their cells while the warden begins searching through them one by one. Soon he calls Tim back into his cell and starts questioning him about his belongings. Among them is a photograph of Tim's parents. Suddenly, the warden's eyes fall on a small piece of wood, actually one of Tim's keys. Tim panics for a moment. The warden asks, "What is this?" Thinking quickly, Tim explains that it's just a little stand to hold up his photograph. Cleverly, he demonstrates it in a way that convinces the warden. Looking at it, the warden scoffs and says it's foolishness. But as he leaves, he leans close to Tim and warns coldly, "If I find out you're planning something or involved in any conspiracy, I won't spare you." With that, the warden walks out, leaving Tim shaken but still determined. After that, for several nights, Tim suffers panic attacks from the constant fear. Realizing the danger, he hides all the keys he made in different spots around the prison. By now, Tim's escape plan is fully ready. He, Lee, and Leonard start moving faster to put it into action. They rehearse again and again, carefully timing how long it takes to unlock a door and move from one section to the next. It's now Tim's 404th day in prison. Because of a toothache, he's taken to the prison dentist. After examining him, the dentist says his tooth is decaying and that he'll need to come to her clinic for further treatment. When the guard escorts Tim outside to the clinic, Tim studies his surroundings closely, observing every detail to better understand the environment. The next day, Tim makes one last plea to his friends to join him. He tells them that in these 404 days, he has crafted 39 keys and secretly opened 15 doors without anyone suspecting a thing. Tim assures them that they won't get caught and insists they should all escape together. He chooses daytime for the breakout because when he was taken to the dentist the previous day, he noticed that during lunch hours, the guard presence is the weakest, and that would be their perfect chance. But the other prisoners are still haunted by the fear of getting caught. They keep telling Tim that escaping is impossible. At this, Leonard snaps in anger, calling them cowards who've gotten too used to living as captives. The argument starts heating up, but Dennis steps in to calm things down. He warns Leonard and Tim that what they're planning will only end badly. Tim responds, "All our lives we've stood for the truth and fought for justice. And what did we get in return? Prison. Meanwhile, people outside are still suffering under oppression." Lee supports Tim, adding, "We can't bring any change while sitting inside these walls." But Dennis isn't moved. He says, "I fought alongside my comrades, I was arrested with them, and I'll die with them. So do what you think is right, but none of us will go with you." Leonard tries to reason with him. "Think again. If you get out, imagine what you can do against apartheid. You could reignite the movement. Think about the innocent people. If you make the wrong choice today, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." Dennis doesn't respond to Leonard's words. After that, Tim, Lee, and Leonard walk away. The next day, as soon as the lunch break begins, the guards and prison staff leave their posts to eat. For a short while, the entire atmosphere loosens up, and this moment becomes their biggest chance. The second everyone leaves, Tim uses the tool he made from a mopping stick to unlock the door of his cell and steps outside. He then opens Lee's cell and frees him. Tim once again asks Dennis to come with them, but Dennis replies that he prays for their success. After that, Tim opens Leonard's cell, and Leonard joins them too. They quickly take out the stolen clothes Lee had hidden from another prisoner, put them on, and head towards the first door of their escape route. Tim unlocks one lock after another, while the others rush through each gate. So far, the plan is working perfectly. They manage to pass every barrier smoothly without raising any suspicion. Finally, they reach the last door, the same one Tim had failed to open before. Tim peeks through and sees exactly what he had hoped for. The prison's main gate was open. Seeing this, all of them become overwhelmed with emotion. They hug each other, saying this is a moment they'll never forget for the rest of their lives. But the hardest part still remains, opening that last door. Tim tries with all his might, but the door just won't budge. Time is slipping away, and panic starts to set in. Suddenly, Leonard comes up with an idea. He taps on the door to locate the latch inside, then asks for a chisel and begins breaking the latch hole. Tim, alarmed, tells him to stop, warning that the loud noise could get them caught. But Leonard ignores him and keeps striking the lock. Finally, his decision pays off. The door breaks open. The three of them step out cautiously, scanning their surroundings to make sure the coast is clear. That's when Tim spots a sniper positioned at the gate. Leonard, unaware, starts moving forward, but Tim quickly pulls him back and whispers, "Don't rush, there's a sniper up there." Using a small mirror, Tim tries to figure out the sniper's exact position. The three of them wait patiently for the sniper to turn in the opposite direction. As soon as the sniper turns the other way, Lee signals Tim to move quickly toward the main gate. Tim rushes out, scanning all around him, and within moments, Lee and Leonard catch up to him. Tim then pulls out the map he had taken from the black prisoner, studies the route, and plans their next move. The three of them step outside the prison and head toward the road. Tim notices some guards and staff standing a little distance away, chatting with each other. Because of this, they move forward very cautiously, making sure not to get spotted. The moment they see an opening, they sprint and finally reach a taxi stand far from the prison. They know they must get out of the area as fast as possible. Using the money he had hidden, Tim hires a taxi, and the three of them set off toward Johannesburg. Meanwhile, when the guard discover that Tim, Lee, and Leonard have escaped, panic strikes. He rushes to sound the alarm, but by then it's already too late. Tim, Lee, and Leonard are long gone. Freedom shines clearly on their faces. Tim looks down at the key in his hand, the one that had set them free. He becomes emotional, realizing that this key hadn't just opened doors, but had also unlocked their dream of breathing fresh air once again. They crossed the border to Mozambique, Tanzania, and then London, where they rejoined the ANC and continued the struggle against apartheid. They were fugitives until they were pardoned in 1991. After 22 years, Dennis Goldberg was released in 1985 and reunited with his wife Esme and their 2 children. The global struggle against oppression and injustice resulted in the fall of apartheid in 1992. In 1994, Nelson Mandela, the leader of the ANC, was elected president of South Africa. So that was the end of the movie. If you liked the explanation, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.